Welcome to the live stream. You know the deal, check the timestamps down below. I'm going to spend the next hour on my feet answering shadow work questions from the community, and we have got the full illuminated setup in the library. I also have some new features down here. I'll show you them right at the beginning. New rugs, new blankets, new throws. Archangel Michael over there, he's fully illuminated. Let's do some community shadow work. We'll wait a few minutes, as always, to bring people in, and during these next few minutes, I'm quite happy to announce that if you've heard of the Shadow Work Library, which is my private group coaching community, somewhere between a mixture of a master's degree seminar with high-level conversation, because everyone's been doing their reading in the week between, and something like a great intimate group therapeutic environment, that is my thing. And if you want to get involved in my thing and make it your thing, link in the description. That's the Shadow Work Library. It feels like a university and a group therapy space combined together, and it is an absolute riot in there right now. I actually put a post up in there just today talking about group accountability, of the fact that for the last 5 weeks I have not been using my online phone in the bedroom, because I realised I had a very bad habit that maybe you can relate, where I would take my phone into the bedroom and I'd end up watching YouTube shorts or watching YouTube videos and just not properly resting, not properly decompressing, but just wasting time. That's one of the private benefits I've had of working in a community space, because I hold myself accountable, and I know at this very minute there are community members inside. I believe we've got 70 or 71 community members right now. 2 group calls every single week, 20 people per call, 7 p.m. London until 8:30, and 7 p.m. New York until 8:30, or you can do it at midnight like me, like a madman. That's a Shadow Work Library update. If you want a one-to-one conversation, just message me on Instagram. Genuinely, I'm not necessarily the best at doing email or messaging or anything that's kind of mass. I really like one-to-one communication. So if you do want to get involved this year, send me a message. That's the update. I'm seeing people coming in the chat. Jamie says hello everyone. Pri says hello. If you're joining, we've been live for about 2 minutes. And my invitation to you is to get involved, make the most of this opportunity, and we will do some group shadow work together. What have you been reading this week? What have you been focusing on? What kind of pains or darkness or blockages or self-limiting whatevers have you been encountering? The more that I know, the more that we can do together. This is your opportunity to make the most of me. I'm going to be here for the next hour. Let's hang out. Let's do some shadow work together. And I'm on my feet to encourage some nice mobility of thought and action. I see Victor in the chat read Ego and Archetype by Edinger. Ego and Archetype is a high-level book. I believe that it's over here. Or is it in the other shelf? It's in the other Jungian shelf. No, it's over here. That's the one Jungian shelf with Carl Jung. But Ego and Archetype by Edinger is this book, and I've forgotten to flip around the camera. This is some high-level Jungian take on a lot of alchemical Christian mysticism as it relates to the archetypal theme. Ego and Archetype by Edward Edinger. It might be flipped around on your screen, in which case, just screenshot it. Fantastic book. Victor, thank you for recommending it. Top Shadow Work Library student. Still showing up for the streams. I appreciate you. Who else have we got, Rennie? Another Shadow Work Library student. Hey, hey, have an awesome weekend. Here for 15 minutes, stop by to say hi. Welcome. It's good to see you here. I'll be interested in what you've been reading for the week. Emma says hello, and Callum also says good morning. Rennie says that she's still reading Joy. And Victor says hi to Rennie. We've got our students chatting side by side. Callum asked, what's the explanation for love, avoidance, or addiction from a Jungian perspective? What to do if you're love avoidant or love addicted? One of them is an overcharged pattern where you are way too involved in validation or searching for the magical other, and the other is an avoidant pattern where maybe you're a bit too under-involved in presenting your magical insides. I think in a general overall framing, the Jungian take would be that there's 2 ends of the spectrum of either overtly pedestalizing someone else or potentially withdrawing and de-pedestalizing yourself. One of the books I've recommended widely across the channel is just over here. You must have seen this one before, my friend. I know you have. It's the Eden Project by James Hollis. I've been recommending it week by week. The Eden Project by James Hollis. That's the book that you'll want to read, Callum. If you haven't already, that is the one. Who else have we got in the chat? Let's take a peek. See Rennie and Victor having a conversation. I see Jamie Knott in the chat saying, I've been reading my favourite guilty pleasure, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Fictional take on an inner work journey. Good hero's arc inside Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a fun book. And Mr. Dan says, I finished A Life of Meaning by James Hollis, which I believe is just down here. Now I've got Creating a Life. I am still here, if you wonder where I am. There's a few James Hollis books. No. A Life of Meaning, I believe, is no longer in this library, unless... No, it's not. I've got 2 alternative James Hollis books. Those are from my retirement shelf, which is down below, next to my salt lamp. We've got this book down here, Creating a Life by James Hollis, and we've got this one as well, which I believe is Living an Examined Life. Hollis is taking centre stage today. Fantastic Jungian thinker. Still alive, still working. I have friends who've, a friend in particular who's interviewed him. Cool guy. Victor says, great book from the library curriculum. Callum says, I plan to read the Eden Project and I have it downloaded. And Raulul says, hey man, I've stumbled about your chaos theory video yesterday and it's almost like you made that video for me. I'm glad. It's something I don't talk about too often, the quantum sciencey aspects of things, but if you're into that psychology, then enjoy it. We have a question or a comment from Andre. Andre says, hello there, Jordan. Hello. Have a nice stream. What do I think about Gestalt? Gestalt therapy as an approach. I haven't been talking about it in videos. Is it worth studying now? Yeah, of course. Gestalt therapy. This is the book that you want. This is the one, beginner text, which is... it's the old school to classic. This one was published in 1951. OG group therapy. Gestalt therapy, excitement and growth in the human personality by Frederick Perls. You're going to enjoy that one. Give it a screenshot. Gestalt is worthwhile. The group therapy dynamics are there. Unfortunately, and fortunately, I haven't had that much experience doing group therapy face-to-face, whereas this is a lot more encountered in the face-to-face workshop environments. I do have group coaching and group therapy now. It is an interesting cover, I agree, Renee. Technically, I now have 2 20-ish person groups, which I am therapeutically and academically working with every single week, but I've still yet to catch up on the identity level that I am, some would say, a group facilitator and group leader. It's been 6 or 7 weeks, I believe, of opening up the Shadow Work Library community, and it's still, quite honestly, a new aspect of my identity. I'm very much a one-to-one kind of man. I enjoy reading the books, I enjoy you reading the books, I enjoy talking about the books that we've read, and then also involving your life in all of the material and making some practical, actionable change. That's how I work in mentorships. Gestalt therapy works much better in collective environments. Otherwise, we're still looking at parts work approaches. That's a one-to-one thing, it can be one-to-many, but if you are interested in Gestalt, do read this book by Frederick Perls. This is one of the OG books. I believe it is the original book, if I'm not mistaken. Go for this one. 74 years old. Pretty cool. Tyler Bailey says, question, what is the best book you've read about healing the father wound? Probably The Wounding and Healing of Men. And that book might be Under Saturn's Shadow. Let's go over to the Jungian shelf. And James Hollis is coming right back again. 4th James Hollis book in less than 10 minutes. What are we going to do about this? Under Saturn's Shadow, The Wounding and Healing of Men. I recommended this book to a client only last week, one of my male clients, and he's going to get quite a journey with this one. There's some good extracts in here. For example, if I randomly bring out this quote that's on the page, it seems to be appropriate. Quote from James Hollis, fathers so often return home dispirited and soul-worn. They can hardly model a positive masculine imago for their sons when they feel the Saturnian opposition so keenly. There is no point in a man blaming his father, for his father could then blame his father. The chain of cause and effect reaches back to the beginnings of industrial and urban man. When the tribe was absorbed into the larger society, the chance for man-to-man transmissions was virtually lost. We can scarcely go back to tribalism, Hollis continues, finishing the quote, although one feature of the men's movement has been to try and recapture a sense of it by drumming and chanting and bringing men back together to share their stories. That's Under Saturn's Shadow by James Hollis, in response to a great book to read about the father wound. You can also read John Rowan, and John Rowan is down here, or he's in the therapy shelf down here, Wounding and Healing of Men, or is it over there in the men's work? It is here. Second book on the father wound is Healing the Male Psyche by John Rowan. This is a book by a man for men. It's therapy specifically in the context of if you're a man looking to therapeutically work on yourself, with more of a focus on actionable change rather than perhaps the stereotype around just talking about your feelings. This is a fantastic humanistic psychologist. I've read 4 or 5 of his books. This is the best one as it relates to men. Already made a little bit of a stack over here. I see Lanky Beats saying, my new setup's looking good, Jordan. I've finally been reading The Betrayal of the Body. Super interesting read. What's your favourite concept or insight from the book? The first time that I read Alexander Lowen and Betrayal of the Body, the very idea that my dissociation was something that was reversible and I could break the bioenergetic holding patterns was revolutionary for me. To understand that I betrayed my own flesh and I'd abandoned my body because of the pain, because of the wounding, because of the anxiety. That was the idea that stuck the most for me. And also, thank you for the comments about the new setup. I'm enjoying the lighting, especially these spotlights. Very much enjoying them. Very, very much enjoying them. A few more questions coming in. Who are my top 3 psychology thinkers? That's a good question. In the chat, this is actually a chat moment. Who are Jordan's top 3 psychological thinkers? Let's make this a community moment. We've got about 40 people watching in the live. I want to see if the group creates the answer for me. I don't know in this exact moment, but which books do you think that I have the warmest connection with, or maybe thinkers that I keep recommending, teachers? Who are my top 3? Let me know in the chat. If you're a long-term viewer of the channel, who do I not shut up about? I'd love to see what the collective answer is here. And then I will wrap it together. Let's have a bit of fun. That's the point of a live stream. We're going to have some fun together. I see in the chat, Alexander Lowen from Mr. Dan. Jung, it's a guess. Tyler Bailey says Lowen. Ten says Anthony Lowen. Maybe Alexander's long-lost brother. Tyler says Jung, Alexander Lowen. I see Jung again, I see Long again. Ten says sorry. Alex, Samantha, that's Ten's. Murray Stein has a beautiful face, that's actually quite good. Arthur Janov from Mr. Dan as well. Got some good names in there. Carl Rogers is appearing for the first time. Anyone else that hasn't been mentioned? Jung, Lowen, and Wilbur. Ooh, from Callum. Ooh, Callum, you got close there. Jung, Lowen, and Wilbur. Okay, Lowen and Wilbur are definitely going to be the 2. I'm going to go with that. I've read all 12 of Alexander Lowen's books. That is that wonderful little selection down here. And this is mostly Ken Wilber. I mean, more or less from here, with the addition of this book, from here to here, and then these is Ken Wilber. And that's the integral shelf. So we've got Alexander Lowen and Ken Wilber. They are locked in, 2 out of 3 Jordan's top psychology thinkers. But who is the final one? Let's come to collective assessment. Victor says Murray Stein, Robert Johnson, and Pete Walker. Great guesses, but not necessarily as like all-time favorites. They've all written fantastic books. Murray Stein, Jung's Map of the Soul. Pete Walker, Complex PTSD. Robert Johnson's books, He, She, and We. Fantastic. Spiral Dynamics. Charles Whitfield. Charles Whitfield's a good guess. Charles Whitfield is a very good guess. I see Carl Jung again. It's tough to say. I think we can all agree that Ken Wilber has a special place in my heart. Alexander Lowen has a special place even deeper in my heart. Maybe Ken Wilber has a special place in my mind. Alexander Lowen has a special place in my heart because he's somatically oriented. But then who has a special place in my soul? Ooh, that's the question. Who's my spiritual teacher? Who's my spiritually leaning psychologist or psychoanalytical figure of choice? Who do I keep recommending? We'll answer this question together. Jesus. Jesus is a good guess. Alice Bailey. Callum, you have won the award. You have won the award. Callum guessed Lowen, then Wilbur, and then corrected himself to then come in with Alice Bailey. This shelf over here, that's my Alice Bailey shelf. You might recognize this book, and you'll probably recognize maybe this book. Certainly this book. You're right, Alice Bailey. Ripping the 1930s, 1940s women. These wonderful little esoteric books. Treatise on White Magic, Glamour, A World Problem, and From Intellect to Intuition. Callum deserves a free pass into the community, Jordan. You know what, Callum? Because you got all three right, actually, if you do message me and you want to get involved in the Shadow Work Library community, I will give you a massive discount. Just genuinely, message me. I feel fun. If you want to get involved, I'll give you a significant, let's call it at least 20%, potentially 25%. Yeah, 25% maybe. Yeah, 25% discount off the main price. It's $750 at main price. Anyone who signs up for the newsletter gets 10% off down to $675. I'm going to give you at least a double discount, maybe even closer to a triple discount, because you single-handedly got my 3 top psychologists. So if it's something you want, fantastic. Otherwise you can pass it on to someone else. Maybe that's what we're doing. Callum, let me know in the chat right now, would you potentially want to join the Shadow Work Library if you had 25% off? Because I'd love to give it you, but if it doesn't seem like something you want to get involved with right now, you can pass it on to someone. And then we'll do a bit of a free-for-all if he wants to get in the Shadow Work Library at a big discount, because, yeah, that's what we're doing, I guess. I see Victor saying about the Shadow Work Library, one of my students inside, long-time member of the Shadow Work Library, he's been there for over a year, and active member in the community every weekend. He says the weekend chats are totally worth it, not to mention all the great people in the community. Victor, fantastic. Thank you so much. I'd be curious what your opinion is of maybe... reason I hesitate on the question is I want to protect the confidentiality of all the members, because I know that you're happy to visibly represent the Shadow Work Library, but I don't want to identify other members without their consent. So I guess the question I'll ask is, Victor, how do you find the quality of conversation or the quality of consciousness for the other members? What kinds of people are you meeting inside? Let me know. Just in the chat would be a nice way to wrap it together. Rennie, it's good to see you. I'll see you in the library on the weekend. See you for that seminar. Callum, let me know in the chat if you would like to join the library, or we could pass it on to someone else and do a bit of fun on this live stream. Lanky Beats said, would I recommend exploring all of Lowen's work? Yes, I would. I mean, if you're joining live, anyone else who's joining live, Ken Wilber, Alexander Lowen, and Alice Bailey are my top 3 psychologists, it seems, via community consent, but specifically Callum's very sharp mind. I would recommend reading all of Lowen. Callum says in chat, I'll pass it on to the chat, saving for a trip overseas currently, but appreciate the potential discount. Callum, you are a generous man. If anyone's watching this chat right now, genuinely live, send me a message on Instagram saying I was there live. I'd quite like that 25% discount on Callum's behalf, and the first person who sends me that message and I see in my inbox, I will give Callum's discount to you on Callum's behalf. And then Callum, if you want to message me as well on Instagram, I'll then let you know that that's been passed on, but you can trust as well that someone will get that. Again, the race is on right now if you want to join and get 25% off the fee as this random fun community moment. Just message me on Instagram. You can get that if you claim it within 24 hours, I'll give it you. If not, I'll go to the person who came second, and so on and so forth. We will get someone in. What are we seeing in the chat? Look at me, I'm doing proper live streaming things, creating on-the-spot deep discounts based on community giveaways. I suppose that's my first moment. That's my first moment of doing my version of a community challenge and community giveaway on a live stream. All it took was 5 months of live streaming, and now I'm a proper Twitch streamer, which is quite interesting. I see in the chat, maybe I should know this by now, but is Jordan religious? I saw the cross. I mean, I do have a cross here. I do have a cross on the wall, and we've also got the Summa of Thomas Aquinas. This entire bookshelf is Catholic and Christian, and yet I wouldn't call myself a Christian by identity. I'm very curious in the tradition, and I'm curious in the original texts. For example, this is widely regarded by bishops and clerics as being the most important text in the Catholic tradition, the Summa by Thomas Aquinas, which I believe is 13th or 14th century. And check this out. Look at that text. Look at that script. I've yet to be able to dive into this. I'm finishing every other book within my 100 books for this cycle. This is the crowning book to really finish off the Christian studies for the last year. Reading everything else. This morning I was reading St. Augustine. The book is still in the porch. But this is some real OG Catholic. I have no idea which version of the Bible's best. I see that in chat. I really don't know. I study from a personal curiosity, personal fascination. I like knowing all of the religions of the world. There's an Eastern text down there. Just down there, there's the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads. I'm interested in perennial philosophy. It's important for me to know the religious traditions so I can work with people from different backgrounds. This book is the crowning book. I'm going to get something else I'm going to show you. From my desk. Crowning book right at the end of my 3-month study guide. You probably won't be able to screenshot this one and see it, but the very bottom book right there, book number 100 for my 6 months, is the Summa of Thomas Aquinas. We are on track. We've got just about, I think, 40-ish days until March 21st. This is my 6-month tracker. My 6-month tracker from September 21st is 100 first reads and 40 second reads. I believe right now we are, I don't know, about 70% of the way through. Got a bit of a sprint on the go. I don't know, honestly, if I will make it all the way through the Summa because it is so thick and I want to be careful with how I'm reading that text. But many of these books are repetitions of themes that I've already read. This week I read 4 books. Most weeks, Monday through Thursday, I'll read 3 or 4 books because that's all I do while I'm offline and I enjoy reading. We'll find out. We will find out together. I'm seeing some great conversation in the chat. Let me delicately put this back in and then I might show you this Christian shelf, or maybe not. We will find out. There we go. I'm enjoying this live stream. And Emma says, do I ever run sales on the course? Yes, I'm currently running a promotional invitation. If you go to the link in the description and sign up for the newsletter, I will give you your first 6 books from the 36-book Shadowwork Library curriculum. I'll let you know what they are and give you a little bit of information about that. And I'll also give you 10% off the fee to reduce it down from $750 to $675, which energetically is the equivalent of you walking into my literal library or my literal school. Imagine a physical building, and I could say to you as a new student, here are the first 2 books, and guess what, here's a 3rd book, and I could literally put it in your hands like this and say, please, please, like, welcome to the library, these 6 books are on me. I can't do that logistically because of international students, but the invitation I have going on right now is to give you £75 off the fee. That will cover lifetime access to the course curriculum, 36 books, 9 structured modules, 35 hours of pre-recorded content. It's enough for a full year of inner work and weekly community calls and a very high version of conversation inside there. Genuinely. So yes, there is a sale currently on technically, and you're welcome to find that from the link in the description. And sometimes under special circumstances, like earlier in this live stream when Callum guessed my top 3 psychology thinkers, Ken Wilber, Alexander Lowen and Alice Bailey, he got the opportunity for a deep discount, and someone else may be in my inbox on Instagram right now claiming that on his behalf. But yeah, I generally don't like discounting things too much because I know that I'm already undercharging for how much I'm giving in the Shadowwork Library, given that it's an entire year worth of community group coaching. My mentorships are £7,400 for 4 months. It's a 10%. It's a ratio of 1 to 10, intentionally. 7,400 for 4 months. That's around a dozen to 20 people per year. Very deep client relationships. And then at the wider level, 1/10 of the price is the Shadowwork Library. And then the layer beneath that is all of this for free. That's how I try and run my business model to make it accessible, but still have something like a hierarchy of exclusivity. And the price reflects that. But yeah, it's your choice. Your choice to get involved. I would love to see you there. Victor's saying about the Shadow Work Library, I believe, that it's wonderful during the first year we were all on our own to read and understand the books. And now in the Shadow Work Library we have a whole community of people to share what we have learned, and it really helps illuminate the ideas in the books we are reading. Victor, I agree, honestly. What's really interesting for me in terms of my understanding of group psychology, it's an ongoing process. I'll take a sip of water just to refresh myself, to then give you a bit of a sneak peek behind the scenes of what it's like to run multiple groups of deep thinkers. It's really interesting. As I mentioned earlier in the stream, I have never done group facilitation before. I've always been a one-to-one kind of person. I've read many books about group processes. I understand how to do group dynamics many years ago. I remember leading a fast of a group of people in Germany, and then we had some ritual things, and I can do it. But it's never been my main pleasure, my joy, my real teaching. What I've been learning as a facilitator of the Shadow Work Library is just how much is flowing in the collective unconscious between the members. It was even something that got brought out into one of the seminars, an open discussion about the interpersonal dynamics between all these different brilliant people. It's fantastic, fantastic to see. And my responsibility as someone who's facilitating a 90-minute group call, when there's 20 individuals, all ages, between like 20 and I believe 70 is our oldest member. 20 to 70, most people in their 30s and 40s. But still, to have so many hearts and so many souls and so many histories, so many dreams, all weaving together. And people ask questions. The whole way that I do the Shadow Work Library seminars is that I have a pre-submission form where people get to ask a deep question. I'll usually choose 1 to 3 questions per seminar, and if there's just one question submitted, your question will basically get the full 90 minutes worth of attention. If you ask a question, for example, about how to reconcile your spiritual and material life, you'll get 90 minutes on that from me and from the other 18 or 19 members of the community. If someone else asks a question about how to overcome drink and drugs, for example, what tends to happen in these seminars is that the first question and the second question somehow weave together. Every single week there's been this really interesting synchronistic flow that members have randomly decided that they're going to ask these questions based on their lifestyle, and it seems to come up at the perfect timing. It's really cool. It's really cool. It's very rewarding for me to see the things that I can't see, I suppose, as well. I don't often get the opportunity to have so many perspectives being mirrored back at me and get the feedback privately and in seminars of how I'm showing up, the impact that I'm having, or maybe the way that I seeded something that someone else took and then took it over here and then they bounce it back. I love it, honestly. The Shadow Work Library is really going off to a wonderful start. I've been, quite frankly, somewhat stunned by how many students have been joining. I reached my private internal aspirational goal of how many new students I'd like to have within the first month of opening the doors. I had a 3-month goal. Reached it within the first month because there's so many wonderful people who are here in this YouTube community, and I guess the timing was right for them to want a little bit more structure, a little bit more intensity, one-to-one conversations with me privately, group conversations in the Sunday seminars. I've been amazed. I feel very, very, very blessed to be looking after 2 groups of 20 individuals in the London time zone and the American time zone, New York in particular, 7 p.m. each time. It's quite a late session for me, I will admit. A midnight session, a midnight inner work session here in the library, down on the floor with my floor desk, and yeah, intentional, low, grounded setup. I love it. I really do love it. I'm almost a little bit embarrassed to admit how much I love doing the group teaching, but at my heart, I know I have to pay attention to the business side of things, and here's the marketing, and here's the sales, and here's all the administration, and here's a conversation with my accountant, and here's my lawyer's advice about setting things up for international sales. I get to do all of that. But at its core, I just enjoy teaching and helping. Every single day when I get disconnected by the business side of things and I get wrapped up in the headache of figuring out how to do something with a website or an email platform or a conversation to have with my accountant or how to manage money in different tax brackets in the UK, it drains my energy. I can get excited to it if I force myself to be excited to it, and I'm like, I get to do this, I get to be a businessman, and I get to be an entrepreneur, and let's do some positive reframing. But the reality is that I am a fucking teacher, and I'm a helper, and I'm a coach, and a therapeutic figure. I really enjoy helping in a deep way. And the business sides of things, they disconnect me from my heart quite often. It's something that I do speak about with other coaches and teachers and healers and therapists. It's difficult when you're a one-person business to try and balance it all and to get the content out. I try and reframe it as not I'm creating content, but I'm teaching and communicating via YouTube or via Instagram. I'm not seeing this as I'm making content for you. I'm having a conversation with you. Literally, in real time. If you're here watching live, I'm having a conversation with you in real time. That's the heart of what it means for me as this one-person, entrepreneurial, therapeutic, academic, I don't know. I'm somewhere between a PhD lecturer or an exclusive niche therapist and then this entrepreneurial stage speaker character. Like, all of them come together. Like, it's a university classroom, a TED talk, and a really cozy sofa to talk about mommy and daddy issues, and it all comes together. And it's difficult when you haven't got that many models for replication. You kind of build it as you go. See in the chat, why are you just on your own? Can't someone help you with a task, like sending emails or social media stuff? They could. For many years, people have been saying hire employees. The new way of using AI employee. I don't like it. I don't like the energetics of that. I never want someone to reach out to me in confidence, with courage. They share something. They send me a message on Instagram, send me a voice message. Hey, Jordan, this thing happened to me. 5 minutes. What's your advice? And could we potentially work together? I don't want that energy that they sent to my heart or to my mind to then go through somebody else. Technically, logistically, I could say to everyone, you know what, if you message me on Instagram, there's going to be an assistant there, and the assistant will see everything, and then they pass it on to me. That's a good business move, but it doesn't feel like a good heart move. I don't like it. I feel really strongly that I don't want to go down that path, and to a fault, I've now built 90,000 subscribers on YouTube. Every single comment I've left on this channel, 13,000, 14,000 comments, something like this. It's always been me. Of course, I sometimes get a little bit too loaded with work and I don't get back to everything. But I'd rather it be my work because this is my work. I don't want an experience where someone's pretending to be me in my inbox, or even if it's all very transparent or very conscious, I still don't like the energetics of that. I think if you are making your own business, you get to decide what kind of business you want to create and the energetics of that. And people also are really short-term thinking. They don't think of making a business that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years of career. But I am thinking that way. Just this morning I was reading St. Augustine. I may not have St. Augustine's book just over here. I believe that somewhere over there I may have Confessions. I do have Confessions. St. Augustine, I'm reading The City of God. I'm not comparing myself to St. Augustine, but I'm just giving you a fun bit of a side about the profession of anything that's spiritual, anything that's psychological. St. Augustine in his Confessions, when he's got too many people messaging him and he's trying to think back on should I hire a social media marketing manager, that's what he had going on for him back in 380 AD. Crazy that they could capture that back then, but his solution was just to keep studying and keep teaching. His book, The City of God, took him over a decade to write, and he was finished when he was 72 years old. That book has survived for over 1,600 years. So many of these books, as you've heard me say before, were written by men and women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. My metric of success isn't rapid growth on YouTube or Instagram. It isn't stacking my bank account to millions and millions as quickly as I can. It's staying in the game for as long as I can to be able to confidently and reliably and with genuine inspiration be able to contribute something worthwhile in about 2 or 3 decades' time. I'll do as much as I can in the meantime. But genuinely, via my consciousness, I am somewhere oriented back in the past. Most of the books in this library are around 1970 to 1980. I'm more or less immune to a lot of the modern psychological psychobabble and what's going on TikTok and things like this, and I want it to stay that way. I've never used ChatGPT in my life. I don't want to use these tools. I want to be one of the last representatives of doing it ye old-fashioned way. And whether that's to my fault, financially, it might be true. Whether that's to my fault in terms of mental well-being, that also might be true. But I've learned through my coaching, through building this online presence, and through the Shadow Work Library group coaching and the community it's building over there, I do wish I had more time to do anything. I see in the chat, I wish I had more time to do anything. Someone can help me do some of these things, so maybe I can have more time to do other things. Nothing wrong. Yes, I understand. I understand. But this business is me. It's me. I'm not building an institution where I hire out other coaches. I'm not building a big structure where it becomes a literal external school. The reason that people, to my understanding, seem to pay attention and care about what I have to say is that there's very little mask between who I am and who you get. And I want to maintain that because I think that authenticity is the highest value and the highest contribution in terms of genuine impact in coaching and therapy. And as soon as you start using AI things or you start employing people and parts of the business get away from you, meaningful parts, and the meaningful part for me is pretty much all communication. Maybe thumbnails on YouTube videos, I could hire someone to do that. But if you're communicating with someone, even just a quick email, it matters to me that it's me. To a fault, it matters that it's me. It's almost like a craft mentality of made by hand. Every message is made by hand. Even just today, I got back online on Instagram and I sent out, I believe, about 12 voice messages to people who'd sent me messages over the last week. And yeah, that's how I like it. I see in the chat, conversation continuing. I'm just saying this to push back a little, but could be some fear around losing control of the business when you add another person. Yeah, of course. It's not a bad thing. Of course I want to be in control of my own business. It's my business. Of course. Of course I want to be in control of my business. Why would I build a business? It's taken me 5 years to get to this point in my business and enjoy the business I have overall. I'm not going to give significant aspects of my outbound energy over to someone else when I get to do this and it's my work. I think part of the thing, or part of the trap to be more precise, imagine you're a photographer. You're a photographer who loves going through the streets and taking pictures of people in interesting situations, and gradually the business gets better and better. You have tours and you have private bookings, and then you hire out a few other photographers, and then gradually you have an agency of a fleet of 12 photographers moving around the world, and you're spending all day managing invoices and payrolls and emails behind the scenes, and you're not shooting the camera anymore. You're not actually on the street. The same as if you're a painter or you're a dancer or anyone who's artistic. You're out there in the world, and the business is the doing, and the doing is the authenticity, and it's expressive and it's vital, and it's what you're here for. It's why you made the business in the first place, because the business is you, because you're artistic. If your business was, I don't know, drop shipping bookmarks, sure, employ a team, automate it. But for this work where I'm trying to give you my soul, no one can do that. And I see the importance of that in every small interaction, because no one that I could possibly employ would go into my inbox and be able to get that intuitive hit that this person needs this particular book, even though they asked this question over here. That's my gift. That's my gift. I see in the chat, I get that fear, but trusting people, we're not alone and people can help us. Of course people help me. I've hired mentors, I've hired teachers, I talk to my friends who are business owners, but that's external to them being involved in the crucial day-by-day operations of how I do things as a teacher online. I'm not saying I need to do it all myself. I'm just saying that there's a layer of mentoring and teaching and consulting with peers that stays outside of this wonderful library space. Bit of a maybe insight into my mind as a teacher and a coach. I don't know how original it is. I don't know how interesting it is, but that seems to be what we were talking about. I saw some good conversation coming through in the chat just there. Jamie says, I truly do understand. It's all about the importance of one-on-one connection if we are to heal as humanity. I believe that. It's what I feel when someone buys the Shadow Work Library and they join, they send their new student induction, usually a mini essay. I'll send them a voice note. I want to talk to them. I want to understand them. I do wish I had more time with each individual, but I'm glad that at least it's my imprint, rather than someone I've hired who is onboarding someone on my behalf. That becomes disconnective. Might work for this year, might work for next year. Will it work 10 years' time? I don't know. I don't know. See in the chat. Completely understand this feeling. I'm the same with my clients. Hetty says, yeah, always go with your heart. And Myrna says, thank you, Jordan, for following your heart. Thank you. Samantha says, we love you for providing the space, Jordan. Feeling is mutual. And Jenna says, just discovered your work yesterday. Very grateful for this community. Tyler, earlier question, he said, would you say that Jung is a better psychologist than Freud because he includes man's soul, spirituality in his work? Tyler, I would never ask any person to choose. It seems silly. Why do you need to choose Freud or Jung. They're different. They're genuinely different. Part of the downside of Jung being so focused on spirituality is he loses out on a lot of the early life childhood trauma aspects. He downplays it. He goes into the archetypal realm potentially too quickly. It's all about the divine image of the mother or the divine image of the father. He maybe loses out on some of the earlier, Freudian-esque oral stage, anal stage. You get both. You don't have to choose. You can have Freud on the left and Jung on the right and throw a party together. I know on some of my community polls, I believe at the very end of last year I said it's New Year's and you've got party invites from both of them. Are you going to get slung with Jung or freaky with Freud? And the majority of the community voted to get slung with Jung. But we should also be willing to get freaky with Freud every now and again. We don't have to choose. We do not have to choose. You can buy all the books. I'm going to go to the Freud Museum in London sometime soon as well. I went to the Freud home in Vienna in December, and it whet my appetite to make the trip into the city and see where Freud spent his final days. I should be doing that in the next few months, so I'll keep you guys updated about that too. Maybe take some photos. Who knows? And Fisa says, finally got here on the stream. Hello from Moldova, Jordan. Thank you for what you do here on YouTube. Thank you. Thank you. I'm here to answer questions as well. If anyone has any questions that I missed, or you have a question because you're joining live, just put the word question and then your question in the chat, and we'll try and do a few rapid fire questions, maybe bring out some books, bring out some pointed advice. I've got roughly 20 minutes until I need to go for my next client session. One of my one-to-one clients, that's a 2-hour private chat. I see from Samantha, my thoughts on Rollo May. I enjoy Rollo May. I believe that Rollo May lives down here on my left. He does. Down here, there's a few books of Rollo May. There is one down here, The Courage to Create, and there's also this one, Meaning of Anxiety. I believe this is the one that made the most impact on me. Rollo May, I believe maybe 1947 or 1951. Meaning of Anxiety. Another book, Courage to Create, is pretty cool. 1950, I was close. I said 1947 and 1950 something, but we got 1950. You can read it. This is probably one of the best books to read. You've also got Love and Will. That's pretty good. Although, I will be honest, Rollo May has a good impact on most people. He didn't spark something inside of me that he seems to spark in other people. He's a great thinker. He's rich in his words, but it didn't do it for me. Which is why, again, I don't need to choose between Freud or Jung or between Rollo May and Edward Ellinger or James Hollis. You meet different people, and fundamentally, I think the deeper that you go into studies, the less it's about the information from a particular book, and the more it's about the conversation with the consciousness of the author of the book. For me personally, for whatever reason, Rollo May's character and temperament just didn't match. It didn't match my character and temperament, whereas Alexander Lowen, reading his books feels like a hug and a handshake and a high five and many more things as well, depending on how intimate I want to get with Alexander, but it really does feel good. But Rollo, I can give or take. I see you saying I picked up The Meaning of Anxiety and Power and Innocence yesterday and definitely new to his works, and I'm only familiar with him Meeting the Shadow. Good. Very good. I see another question in chat. What is one piece of advice you have for people looking to absorb more from books they read? Is there something like rereading or journaling you have an affinity for regarding this? Marcus, you are right there on the conversation. As I was just saying there, make sure that books feel like conversations rather than studying for an exam. If you really want to get the heart and the soul of a therapeutic book, treat it like a soulful conversation. Don't be in a situation where you're just scouting for information. Don't try and rip out the concepts quickly. See it as a conversation. Literally open your heart. Literally read it with your heart. I recommend some of the best books that exist on this channel. I say it with confidence because I know it to be true. I recommend some of the best books that exist from some of the best men and women who have devoted their lives to these questions. When I recommend a book like From Intellect to Intuition by Alice Bailey, this book is heavily highlighted, yes, because there's information in here that I want to remember. For example, I want to remember that man rising to the summit of his mind is exalted God, and through the agency of the mind as a directed instrument, the soul can manipulate the impulses or thought currents. Fantastic. But fundamentally, the reason I've read 13 or 14 Alice Bailey books is I want to hang out with Alice as we have a coffee and a chat. Maybe we meditate together, but fundamentally I hang out with the authors that are in this room. I feel their presence, as cheesy as it sounds, when I walk into the library multiple times per day. And I've never said this online before, but often when I'm having dinner or I'm just looking up from my desk between client sessions, I'll look around and I'll say out loud, I've never said this before, I'll say out loud, wow, thank you everybody. I really feel it. It's almost like I feel the streams of their life force coming out and touching me on the heart, and I'm merely another book or two in this whole library experience for someone else 100 years from now. That's how I get the most out of these books. They're not books. They're not even people. It's souls translated into words for you to consume and consummate and become if you pay attention. That's the joy of reading. If you really go all the way into it, that's the joy of reading in this field, in particular in psychosomatic spiritual work. What do we think about that? Is that a bit too out there? Let me know in the chat, is that a bit too woo-woo? Am I taking it a bit too much of a bibliophile for my own good, or does it make sense? Victor, again, one of my shadow work library students, he's saying, Jordan, you've created a beautiful life. Thanks for being my light shadow. Well, if I'm your golden shadow projection hook, Victor, then I will bounce that right back to you because you've got a beautiful energy yourself, and I see it in every seminar. Marcus says lovely insight. Myrna says poetic explanation. And as well, and that's the other question I had regarding note-taking. Yeah. I love the work. I genuinely love it. I love the moments that happen. If you were here last week on the live stream, I was bringing out Mysticism by Evelyn Underhill. Bought this book out, and I believe it was on page 74 or 73 if I remember the book correctly. 72 and 73. My mind remembers the blue and the purple, and then seeing the 73 at the side. Last week I spent about 2 minutes looking through this book to try and remember where this verse was, because I got so inspired by the text. I read this verse down below. I'll read it again for anyone who wasn't here last time. I was reading this book about mysticism. This was published, I believe, in 1911. And because I was so inspired about this particular quote here, at the very bottom, not to know about but to be is the mark of the real initiate. And I wrote 5 years ago at the very bottom of the page, not to know about but to be, to breathe the source of what you see, to tune your heart to passion's scent as both song and instrument. You may have heard that last week. That poetry comes out of me because I'm having a different conversation with Evelyn Underhill as she's bringing out the various Christian mystics throughout the last 1,000 years or so. 2,000 years realistically, going all the way back. That's why I can read so much. That's why when people ask, how do you read? How do you read a book a day? How can you possibly read 5 books in a week? I would ask you, if you had 5 best friends and they all invited you to a day out together, how can you possibly go for 5 fun days out with your 5 cool best friends? It's a silly question. It's a silly question. It's a non-question. Why do you enjoy spending time with your pals? Why do you enjoy their company? That's how I feel about very good books. Not every book is like this. Some books are fundamentally shit and they leave the library. Many of them are not. Sometimes I make mistakes. But in the same way that you might go on a first date with someone and you realise you're really not compatible, you just don't go on a second date. Whereas a book like From Intellect to Intuition, which is an Alice Bailey book, I've gone on at least 3 dates with Alice. She's fantastic. I mean, she's quite old now. She's not even alive. She's quite skinny. She's skin and bones. But she's pretty cool. I'm getting a bit cheeky on these live streams. I feel very inspired to go and read now. I'll see you all on Sunday, Samantha. I will see you in there. Look forward to it. I see Lanky Beats in the chat. Have you read or heard of reality transurfing? It's an interesting blend of science, psychology, spirituality, and some other topics. I have, and I almost bought the book, but then I did a bit more research, and I realised, based on my conjecture, that it's essentially a repackaging of all of this New Age quantum science from the 1950s onwards, mixed in with some of the spiral dynamics and global consciousness studies, and then aspects of transpersonal psychology and Jungian psychology, but also minimized down to something which almost has a larger-than-life hype to it for a mainstream market. That's how I got the impression for reality transurfing. I researched the author, I saw what people were saying online. It almost falls into the law of attraction, new age manifestation camp, but with a bit more of the quantum scientific background. I'll eventually come around to reading it, but it didn't seem like it was worth the timely investment compared to the material that's genuinely here from actual physicists and scientists and other great spiritual teachers. I'd rather just go to the original source material than someone who's collated and collected, because I do enough of that myself. I like people who are specialists in their field, and then I get to bring them together. But also, that is pure conjecture. I've never read the book. I was debating it, because if I were to read that one book, I then need to read the whole of it. But I just didn't get the feel. I didn't get the feel that it'd be worthwhile based on what I've read. But I'm sure I will be proven wrong in the future, and I'm very open to it. I just don't have the 50 or 60 hours available to me just yet to go deep in something like that. Great question from Emma. What are some books you expected to be good but ended up not liking? Very good question. Let's take a tour around the library. Which books still exist in this library? That's the question. That I didn't really like, but I think they're important. That other people would like them. Want to look at the shelf? There's definitely a few. There's a few that I thought would be fantastic, and they were rather disappointing. Actually, you know what? I know who we're going to talk about. If you're a long-time viewer of the channel, you're not going to be surprised about who I'm going to bring out of the shelf. He is here. He does walk amongst us. Any guesses? Any guesses? I'm going to give you a hint, okay? Give you a hint. A very popular philosopher. There's many YouTube videos on this philosopher. He's often mentioned. He lived in the 20th century. I read 4 or 5 of his books, read a biography or 2. Who did I not vibe with? Even though many, many, many people love his work. 20th century philosopher. In this kind of realm of psycho-spiritual inner work. Come on, let's get involved in the chat. Let me know. Someone will get it. Someone will remember it. It's quite a famous figure. He's over on this shelf. I see Alan Watts from Victor in the chat. It wasn't Alan Watts. I see Terence McKenna. No, not Terence McKenna. Earlier than Alan Watts and Terence McKenna. Think more start of the century. Bertrand Russell. No, I enjoyed Bertrand Russell. I've got his History of Western Philosophy. Mr. Dan, you've got it. Mari also has it. Back to back. Back to back. It's Nietzsche. It's Nietzsche. Read this book. Read other books. I read Thus Spoke Zarathustra. I read The Joyous Science. There's another book I read as well, which I think I banished. And there's a 4th book in there, I Am Dynamite, his biography. I loathed the work. I found it dead. It didn't resonate with me, which is the hippie way of saying I don't like it. I just didn't like it. I think. People have different opinions, but my actual felt experience of reading the book is that because I had such a depressive, heavy experience from age 10 to age 22, I didn't need more of the it's all dreadful, the world is ending, struggle kind of energy. I resonate so much with Abraham Maslow or with Alexander Lowen and the humanistic thinkers in the 60s and the 70s, because rather than looking towards existential angst, they had the possibility and the vision of what humans could be at peak potential, what the golden shadow could be. And Nietzsche really didn't do it for me. Really didn't do it for me. And I thought, you know what, there's a reason why Nietzsche didn't sell many copies of his books while he was alive. Based on my personal feeling, he was just a weird fucking man. He had a weird life. He wasn't very well socialized. He wasn't very happy. I don't know all of the existential aspects of his psychology. I can't remember it, but the immediate impression, if you read Nietzsche and then you read someone like Alice Bailey or Alexander Lowen or Ken Wilber, it's night and day. Let me know in the chat, do you agree or not? Do you agree or not with what I'm saying about Nietzsche? Lonely K said, I remember you keeping Nietzsche and Dostoevsky on a similar footing. You know what? No. Dostoevsky is fantastic. Dostoevsky, I've got a few Dostoevsky books. I believe one down here. I read a few many years ago. If we're going to go for a bit of classic Dosto action, we've got Crime and Punishment, and we've got Notes from the Underground. What's quite beautiful, even about a book like Notes from the Underground, is that it's clearly fictionized. It's a fictionized understanding of what's happening inside the mind of someone who becomes sick from society. But if you're looking at Crime and Punishment, there's moral questions that are being asked there. But you actually look at Dostoevsky in the time that he was growing up, there was a sense of religiosity that I think comes up in Brothers Karamazov, if I'm saying that correctly, which it feels very different. It feels different. Jamie said, I found more understanding of Nietzsche as I age, but it has to be used in small doses. I appreciate that. Lanky Beat says, that's very fair about Nietzsche. It's a bit culty, and some of it I think is written in a style to poke the reader's ego, but it serves as a great intro for a lot of topics and warns against taking it as dogma. I think so. Really, genuinely, I appreciate people reading all kinds of philosophers. The reason that Nietzsche is still in my library is that I clearly have a sense that these books would be useful in a video or in a moment in a client session in the future, and even though I've said my personal experience of reading a few Nietzsche books, you might have a completely different experience based on your particular temperament. I did not like the books, and I didn't like his consciousness because I went through such a hopeless period for 12 years straight. I was such a sad, dark, depressed, heavy teenager and early young adult. I fought so much to release that from my body and finally see the light. Finally, it's not falling apart. There's birds. I was walking back today between sessions, and as I was approaching my home, I was walking down the street, and I heard the robin who lives in the bush outside, and he was loud and proud. I was 50 steps away, and I could hear the robin. He was so loud, and there was a smile building on my face as I walk back to my home, and then I hear the other blue tits, and there's occasionally some squirrels going around, and just the sheer joy of, wow, my garden has wildlife in it. It's a small garden, it's just a normal place. And yet, my heart responds to bird song and hope and playfulness of squirrels going up and down trees. I lacked that in my childhood. I didn't have a great childhood. I had a pretty angry, anxious family home for the 18 years that I was at home. I've talked about this before. I don't need more Nietzsche. I need Abraham Maslow and Michael Washburn. Michael Washburn's book, for example, Embodied Spirituality in a Sacred World. You've seen me recommend this one before. The vision, the hope. Any random extracts here? The source of renewing life. Let's see what we've got. This is what I'm about. I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is, as it were, and pick out a random quote to see if it's relevant. The tree of life, enrooting beneath the ground, feeds upon underground energies and allows these energies fruitful expression in the world above. And the tree of life, in growing skywards, actually reaches into the heavenly realms and is bathed in heavenly light. I couldn't agree more. I had my time rooting down and looking into the darker sides of human consciousness because I lived that for the first 22 years. And now, in my later adult life and going into my middle adult life, and maybe it'll change around when I become an old man, I'm interested in growing skywards. I'm interested in branching upwards. I'm interested in the golden shadow aspects of what we get to do here. And that's why Nietzsche doesn't land for me. But he might land for you, especially if you're someone who has maybe grandiosity issues, or you're overly optimistic, or maybe you're a bit too positive in a general sense. Read some Nietzsche, balance yourself out. Hope that explains things. Yeah, ain't Notes from the Underground depressing. Notes from the Underground is depressing. Invicta says birds are the best, oh to have wings and fly. And Fiza says Dostoevsky is awesome and is genuinely a strong believer in good in people, though his works are depressing. And see, that's the thing. Dostoevsky, you can feel the heart even behind the fictionalized work. Something you have to sense when you're reading a particular author or creative. Lonely K said, I prefer Dostoevsky. He made me return to Christ. And then Fiza, final comment here on Nietzsche. Oh yes, Nietzsche was unhappy and weird, and you feel it while reading it. Had the same feeling as you, never liked him, would not go on dates with him. Exactly. I want to go on a date with Michael Washburn, not Nietzsche. Mena says, Jordan, you speak so clearly and articulate like a professional actor. How do you do that? Practice. I've spent 3 years speaking to camera every single week for hundreds and hundreds of hours, and I understand that part of my role in the world in terms of my coaching is to bring a bit of theatre, to bring a bit of joy, a bit of storytelling when someone's going into their inner world and they're encountering an archetype, they're encountering a story from the past, and I can say with confidence, that child deserved better. How does that make you feel? A child was you and they deserved better. To just, I'm making something up, to bring a bit of energy into, and the reason I think I can do it is because I've done so much inner work on myself that I've felt so many of the feelings already that they're stored in little Rolodexes inside of me. So I can just quickly flip through within a second, bring out an emotion, and then say, hey, this is the emotion. Does that make sense? This is the emotion. Do you feel that as well? This is the emotion. Here's the calibration point. Would you like to match me over there? And I'm just giving one example for the sake of explaining something. The theatre side of things is, unfortunately, part of being an online personality as well. You naturally learn how to be more charismatic and communicate in a way that captures people's attention. It's just part of the process. So that's how I speak. It's a lot of practice. Jamie said that's exactly how it works and it makes perfect sense. I agree. Let me know if there's any more quick closing questions. I believe I might have time for one more question before I need to go for my client session. That's the timer. Got 15 minutes until I'm off to America, digitally speaking, for my American clients. Final question, first one that I see. Question: how to stay strong while someone you care about is crossing your boundaries. You re-establish your boundaries is the answer, and you do it calmly and patiently, and you just say the same thing over and over again. You don't need to get complex. Excuse me, got a bit of fur on my nose. You don't need to make a reason for it. Say, for example, someone keeps calling you and you don't want them to call you. You just take the phone and say, hey, by the way, I'm not going to be available for these phone calls. It's a full sentence. If someone's physically intruding in your space and you need to hold the boundary, leave or push them out. Just be stronger. Genuinely, be stronger, be more courageous. Allow yourself to believe that you deserve more than them. Allow yourself to really feel the fact that you matter more than them. Because you probably do. Otherwise you're resentful about the fact that your boundaries are being trampled all over. A boundary is something that you build a layer away from your heart. Your true boundary shouldn't be here. My true boundary in this moment is I need to go for 9 o'clock UK time for my client session. I built the boundary in time slightly further away from my actual energetic need, so I've got a bit of buffer room where I don't get stressed, I don't get anxious, I still have time to decompress, start taking my notes for the session, review last session's notes. My boundary is slightly there. If for some reason someone was pushing me, I just calmly restate, I have a client session, so I'm going to go now. And that's what I will do in about a minute's time. Principle of building a boundary slightly away from your actual boundary, which is, I've been stabbed. They stabbed this, and if they stab this, it's still fine, and if they stab this, it's still fine. If you've got a bit of armor here, body armor in the best sense, it goes here, and maybe feel a little bit of a prick, but not too much of a prick. That's my best advice. Thank you for being here on the live. I do get to go and prepare for my next client session, but I've enjoyed being here with you. If you've been here the whole time, then thank you for hanging out with me for the last hour. And if you remember Callum from earlier on with his Shadowwork Library 3 guests, Ken Wilber, Alice Bailey and Alexander Lowen, and you haven't yet messaged me on Instagram and you potentially want that deep discount on his behalf, because you might think, oh, 20 people have messaged me. I guarantee you 20 people haven't messaged me. That group effect is in place where people don't step up and do the thing because they think someone else has already gone ahead. It could be the case that no one's messaged me to claim that discount in the Shadowwork Library. You could be the one. So just try your luck. Send me a message. Hey, I'd like to get involved in the Shadowwork Library. Can I have Callum's discount? And we'll see what we can do. I'll get back to you later tonight or tomorrow. But in the meantime, have a wonderful, wonderful new week. I'm going to put away this massive stack of books. We're going to have a bit of a comedic moment. This is how many books I bought out. There's also, I believe, 4 or 5 on the floor. That's one live stream. That's one live stream. Got some tidying to do. Let's all tidy our inner worlds, and I'll see you next week.